Mike Craven here, Dave Campbell's Texas Football with Texas Tech head coach Joey McGuire. Coach, nice to see you in Las Vegas. I wanted to ask you first, the Adidas deal came out. We saw all the uniforms. What does it mean for the university to have a guy like Patrick Mahomes and to have the new uniforms and all the excitement going on in Texas Tech?
It's incredible. What he's done, putting his name behind the Double T and Adidas. He was such a big part of that deal. It was one thing just being an Adidas team, but it's another thing being an Adidas with Patrick Mahomes. And he's proud, man. You're talking about somebody that's an extremely proud alumni. That's Pat Mahomes.
Also got the facility coming on the South End Zone. Kind of where are y'all at with that? Where are you officing right now? Kind of how do you kind of go about that stuff?
Well, we office on the west side, in the suites, and it was really cool because we got to see it being built every single day. So I've gotten to see it from beginning to almost end now. Everything will be ready for game one, but we should be able to move into the second level, which is our offices, meeting rooms, everything like that, here in a couple of weeks before we get started. So they keep telling me, and I know it's going to happen, that we'll be ready to roll whenever we get report July 30th, and so I feel great about it.
A lot of success the first 2 years, right? 2 winning seasons in the Big 12. I know you well enough to know that you're not satisfied with that. Kind of this offseason, what did you do to kind of help this football team, help yourself, and kind of get better going into 24?
Well, the biggest thing, we took a step back in February, and we watched every single one of our games as a staff from last year and had different coaches talk about what we could have done different. What did we do well? How can we get better? Here we're in the middle of the game. We thought the game was going to go this way. It's not going that way. How do we pivot and be better coaches to help us win the game? I think a lot of growth came out of it. It was frustrating. It was tough. You're watching a BYU game with 5 turnovers and, you're questioning, could we have done a better job? Without a doubt. But there was a lot of learning that went on. And then the biggest thing for me is just going back to that year one of making sure that we are process-oriented, not result-oriented, but process-oriented. I think last year, I blame myself. I got too much of a result-oriented. We had such a good first year. Could have been better, but a good first year. Thought the momentum was going in the right direction. Had a lot of injuries, but we became too result-oriented instead of process-oriented.
I've always wanted to ask you this. What is the differences and similarities between being a high school head coach and a college head coach, and was there anything that kind of caught you off guard when you finally got into that chair?
The similarities, you're developing a locker room, a culture, a team. It doesn't matter what level, whether you're in the NFL or whether you're Olympics basketball team where you got X amount of days to create a bond, that's all the same. The difference, and it changes almost weekly of how are you dealing with NIL, now revenue sharing. How are you going to do with revenue sharing? We're going to share at the highest level. So what does that look like? Does it look more like a NFL salary cap? And so those are the things that you've got to keep learning and keep adapting that you're not having to really deal with at the high school level.
Year 3. A lot of the guys that you've recruited, are now kind of growing up, getting in the weight room, right? What do you expect to be kind of different about this team than maybe the previous 2 years?
I think the biggest thing is we're a lot deeper. The roster is a lot deeper. The easiest position to say is my first year we played 3 defensive tackles. 2 of them had to play more snaps than anybody else in the country by 200-plus snaps. And you're not supposed to do that in the defensive line. And we have 7 defensive tackles that we feel like can play right now. So the depth and then just the offensive skill, I think that's going to be the biggest thing, the takeaway of year 1, year 2, and year 3 is the offensive skill, whether it be tight end, running back, or wide receivers. We're a lot more explosive on offense.
What are your expectations? I know you're not one to kind of down the expectations. Kind of you've been around this team. What do you think the ceiling is for this group?
I think it's important. The next step for us is important to play in meaningful games in November, not games that are getting you into a bowl game or being bowl eligible, games that are putting you in position to play in the Big 12 championship. And then playing in the Big 12 championship, there's a point to where you're going year 3 and year 4. Like you said, these are your guys. They're all your guys, but now even the guys maybe that you didn't recruit, they've been going into their 3rd year of this is who we are, and they've either embraced it and they're still here, or they're gone. And these guys that are still here, they've embraced it. So going into year 3, you got to be able to play some meaningful games in November.
You look sharp today. Back when I interviewed you at Cedar Hill, you didn't dress this well.
No.
So I wanted to ask you, who's the best dressed on the football team?
God, that is a great question. The guy that's probably got the most style, Taj is always going to have some style. Josh Kelly is always going to have some style. And then, God, I'd probably say on the defensive side of the ball, Braylon Lux has got some style, our starting corner. I'm probably missing somebody, but those are the guys that come to mind.
Who do you think I was talking to Caleb Rogers, and I think this may be your answer. Who's the funniest guy on the roster?
Caleb Rogers. Yeah. He is. He's kind of the mouthpiece of the team. He's the guy that's played. He's started 42 games for the Red Raiders. He has a lot of confidence, and the one thing that Caleb's done is he's really embraced being a captain at a whole nother level, and really excited about his year coming up.
You lose Tony, you lose Jalen on the defensive side of the ball. Who are some guys, you just kind of mentioned the leaders, who are some guys who have kind of stepped up to kind of be the dudes that kind of make sure everything's going on behind the scenes that has to be going on?
Yeah, I think, Jacob Rodriguez, you saw last year the games that he played in, we won, where he started and finished. I think he's big. Braylon Lux, he's the vet in the secondary. C.J. Baskerville from Richland High is another guy. Quincy Ledette is going to have a huge year. He's from West Orange Stark. He's the guy that's replacing as kind of the leader, Tony, and then Duda Banks, Wichita Falls Rider, which there's no longer Wichita Falls Rider, but another guy that's going to be replacing Tony and Jalen. Those guys are going to have big years whenever it comes to the vets.
I know this answer, but I think it's awesome. Can you tell the folks kind of what your pregame kind of meal is and how you kind of go about with the pasta bar and where that kind of started from?
Yeah, it starts with Matt Rule. He's a guy that the one thing, kind of being an Italian, it's always you're gonna eat well, and the players, we brought it to Tech, and man, the players absolutely love it. Sometimes I wonder why we eat anything else. There's some guys that do, but I think we need to add another pasta bar because there's a waiting line for that pasta bar.
The pasta bar is great. Deion Sanders is coming into the conference. You obviously have a relationship with him. I'm wondering if you could tell us maybe something we wouldn't expect about Deion Sanders, or that maybe goes against some of the perception of him out there.
Well, I don't know if it's what you expect, but I think a lot of people, whenever you have to go watch him coach to understand why he's in this. And I saw that recruiting Trinity Christian in Cedar Hill. I came out to a practice that was so efficient, so demanding. I think people have to understand there's Deion Sanders, there's Coach Sanders, and there's Coach Prime. And he's one of the greatest that's ever done it whenever it comes to branding and the personality. But he knows football, and he knows players. And any guy that grew up playing for him with the truth and then going to watch him whenever he was at Trinity Christian, he's a real ball coach. He does a really good job.
Lastly, everybody always is worried about conference realignment and what this is going to be. Just being here in Las Vegas, 16 teams, Brett Yormark talking, kind of what are your thoughts on where the Big 12 is right now and where it's going to go?
Yeah, we're in a great place, but it's really important that we back it up. This is a big year for the Big 12. We have to play well in non-conference, overall. And then we need 2 or 3 teams to be playing really good football at the end of the year to where there's just not saying the Big 12 champion is in the Final 12, but you have more than the Big 12 champion in the Final 12. But we're in a great spot. I think it's great football. Anybody can beat anybody, so you better be ready to go every single week.
All right, Coach. Appreciate you as always.
Thank you.
Thanks.